All right, students, this is Miss Witt. This was your homework last night, right here, and you have to, or tonight, sorry, you have to multiply mixed numbers, and this is our lesson today, and tomorrow will be dividing mixed numbers, which is basically the same thing as multiplying. You just have to remember to keep change and flip, so we'll do that tomorrow. But we learned two methods today, which was using the area model method and changing mixed to improper method. So I'm going to actually do one example from our homework with number one, doing both ways, and I'll pick another problem to do both ways so you can practice. You can also make up your own problems when you're at home if you want to practice if you need to. But you don't have to do, both of them. You can pick one to use to help you, or you can maybe flip-flop. But it's just good to know two different ways to get somewhere. I know parents sometimes don't like the area model method, or they just want to do it the old school way, and I understand that. I get it. But it's just like if we're driving, you like to know that you have different ways to get to a destination. And same thing in math. We don't always want to, what if we don't understand the one way? Is there another way that we can learn it? So that's all we're doing is we're teaching just different strategies. So I'm going to start with the first strategy, which is the area model. So I'm going to use this 2 9/10 and times the 4 1/2. The area model method is to break apart each number. So I'm going to break apart the 2 9/10, and it's going to become 2 and then 9/10. I'm decomposing it. I'm using that fancy word again. And then I'm going to break apart the 4 1/2 into 4 1/2. And then we're going to find the area of each of these parts by doing an area model with like a 4 square. We did this in elementary, but mostly probably with whole numbers. And we kind of did one of these today in class. So I'm going to start with the first one, and I'm going to do 2 times 4, the first area. When I do 2 times 4, I'm going to get, let me pick a different color. I'm going to do 8. Okay. Then I'm going to do the next area, which would be 2 times 1/2. Okay. Again, 2 times 1/2. And when I do that, it's kind of like saying 1/2 2 times, so it's 1/2 plus 1/2, which would be 2 over 2, 2/2. And then I do the next one, which would be the next area, which is going to be 9/10 times 1, or times the 4. So I do 9/10 plus 9/10 plus 9/10 plus 9/10, which actually gives me 36 over 10. Okay. Now I do the next one, which would be 9/10 times 1/2. Okay. So I work that out, and I get 9. I multiply, and I just multiply the numerator, and then I multiply the denominator. So I do 9 times 1, which is 9, and then 10 times 2, which is 20. Okay, now I take all my answers in the 4 boxes and I add them together. So at this point, I'm going to do 8 plus 2 over 2 plus 36 over 10 plus 9 over 20. Okay, well, as you know, we cannot add fractions with the bottom numbers being different. So we have to make the denominators all the same by coming up with a common multiple. In this case, a common multiple would be probably 20. So I'm going to change that 2 over 2 to something over 20. How did that 2 become 20? Or how many times can 2 go to 20? It goes in 10 times. So I'm also going to do times 10 on the top. So 2 times 10 will also give me 20. Okay, I'm still adding that whole number 8 in there. Now I'm going to change 36 over 10 to over 20. How did 10 become 20? This 10 right here become 20. Okay, it's times 2. So if I do 10 times 2 to get 20, I have to do 36 times 2, which would be 72. Now the 9 over 20 is already over 20, so I don't have to do anything for that. Now I can add up all my fractions, so it would equal 8, and then you add your 20 plus 72, which is 92, And 92 plus 9 should be, ooh, I think it is, let's see. I'm having a brain fart. It'll be 101. So it'll be 101 over 20. Now at this point, you have an improper fraction. So you want to change it to you want to see if you can get any whole numbers out of that. So I'm going to keep my 8. I'm going to say, how many times can this 20 go into 101? Well, I know 20 times 5, or it can go 5 times, which would give me the 100. So 20 times 5 is 100. I would have one guy left over, and you always keep your bottom number. Now I put my two whole numbers together. 8 plus 5 is 13, and then it would be 1 over 20 still. You still have your fraction. So there is my final answer, 13 and 1/20. So now I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to do it not with the area model I just did. I'm going to do it with the mixed number, changing it to improper. Okay? So I'm going to go to a new piece of paper or blank piece of paper to do this problem. So on this paper, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to write 2 and 9/10 times 4 and 1/2. So to do the mixed number to improper, when I was in elementary, I always used to say to make a check mark. That will help you know which numbers you're doing what with, okay? So, oops. Let me get that away. I was trying to move this mouse. So you would make a check mark to know. I didn't know if I would do 2 with the 9. I couldn't remember if I did 2 with the 10 or if I did something with a 9 and the 10. I never knew. So I decided to make a check mark, and that would remind me. So a check mark is made like this. Okay, you start halfway, go down, and go up. So I'm doing that with my numbers. I'm going to go from here to here and back up. Okay, so when I go from here to here, I am multiplying those two numbers. 2 times 10, which is 20. Now I have 20 in my head, and then I'm going up to the 9. When you go up to the 9, you're adding in that 9. So what's 20 plus 9? 29. So now my new numerator is 29, and your denominator stays always the same. It's over 10. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a check mark with the 4 and 1/2. So I do 4 times 2, which is 8. And then I go up to the 1. I'm going to add, what's 8 plus 1? 9. And then again, I keep my denominator. Now, opposed to adding, subtracting decimals or fractions, you do not have to have common denominators. You can just multiply straight across with your numerators and with your denominators. So 29 times 9 would be, let's see, $261. And then 10 times 2 is 20. So now I have an improper fraction. At this point, you want to try to make a mixed number. So I'm going to see how many times can 20 go into 61. So I would say, well, we have 20, another 20 would be 40, another 20 would be 60, another 20 would be 80, another 20 would be 100. So then I could do another 20, it would be 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. So now I'm at 200, 220, 240, 260. How many 20s did that take to get to 260? It took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 times. And then I got 260, so I had 1 out of 20 left over. Let's see if we got the same thing when we did the problem the other way. Oh, there we go. 13 and 1/20, just like when we did the area model. So there's the area model way, and then this is the improper to mixed way. You get the same exact answer. Another way you could do this instead of counting those 20s like I did, you could just divide. I always tell my students that a fraction is a division problem waiting to happen. You can always divide the 20 into 261 and also do the same thing. You would get the same answer. 20 goes into 26 one time. And you get 20. Your remainder is 6, but you bring down the 1. 20 goes into 61 3 times, and that would give you 60. Oops, there you go, with 1 left over. And so that's how you would get the 1 over 20. So again, it's just another way of doing it. I love different ways. So there's one way that we can do, there's just problem number 1, that's the 2 strategies. I'm going to try another practice, so if you're still not good with it, let's try a different practice. I'm going to have us do it with a smaller fraction. Let's try doing maybe 2 1/4 times 1 and maybe 2/4. Okay, so the area model way is to break apart this number into maybe 2 1/4. Break apart this number into 1 2/4. Make your area 4 square and start multiplying your squares. So I'd have 2 times 1, which would give me 2. I'd have 2 times 2/4, which would give me 4/4. I'd have 1/4 times 1, which would just give me 1/4 again. And then I have 1/4 times 2/4, which gives me 2 over 16. So there's all my numbers I have to put together. So I'd have 2 plus 4/4 plus 1/4 plus 2 over 16. So I cannot add them until the bottom numbers are the same. So we're going to go with 16. So I'd say 2 plus, now how does 4/4 become over 16? This kind of looks like what you had for homework on Monday night. It would look like this. You're making an equivalent fraction. Oops. You can see a little bit better. So how did 4 become 16? Times 4, do the same thing to the top. And so you would get 16 over 16. Which that makes sense. It will give me a whole. Now I'm going to make this 1/4 16. We do that times 4 again. Whatever I do to the bottom, you do to the top. So that would give me 4/16. And then I just keep my 2/16. I put it all together and I get, let me move down here. I would get 2 plus, now you could at this point say, well, 16 over 16 is a whole. Let's just say 1 whole plus, and then all you have to do is add these two guys together. So that'd be 6 over 16, which then would give me 3 6 over 16, which I could simplify that even further by dividing them both by 2, and I would get 3 over 8. And there's my final answer, doing the area model. Now, using the same problem, the 2 1/4 and the 1 2/4, let's try it with the improper, or the mixed improper. So let's try that. Let's do 2 1/4 times 1 2/4, same numbers, by changing and doing the check mark. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so 9/4. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 2 is 6, 6/4. And then you can multiply across. 9 times 6 is 54. 4 times 4 is 16. Now I have an improper fraction, so you divide. One way that you can also, another strategy is that you can simplify the fraction ahead of time. So I can see, well, what number goes in both 54 and 16? Well, I know 2 can go into both of these, so I would maybe divide 2 into 54, and I would get 27. and I would divide 2 into 16. I would get 8. Ooh, that's a lot smaller numbers to work with to now change to a mixed number. Now I can say, okay, how many times can 8 go into 24? You're dividing, because remember, a fraction is a division problem waiting to happen. So I divide 8 into 27. It goes exactly, 3 times, and you get 24, right? So I have 3 whole times. You'd have 3 as your remainder left over 8. So I got 3 and 3/8. Let's see if that's what I got on the previous page. Yep, 3 and 3/8 right there. So you can do what works best for you, but it's a good thing to practice. You have 9 more problems to do tonight on your homework because I did number 1 with you. And good luck. I'll see you tomorrow. And remember, if you can simplify, try to. It's good practice. All right, see you later, guys.